hope is a belief that good things are ahead of you. I've been to those awful places. One of the most difficult tasks that I face is convincing a survivor that there's hope by telling my story and letting others know that there is a way out of a horrible situation into a life that you love. I'm Bobbi Parish. I'm a trauma recovery coach, and I share hope.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
Hey, Chris.
What is up, Bobbi? I am excited to talk to you. I've heard so many good things about you.
Well, thank you, sir.
What are you doing over there?
I was scheduling Google Hangouts.
Oh, that's important.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you do a lot of Google Hangouts. It sounds like you guys both do a ton of this stuff, right?
We do one every Monday. Every
Wow.
Monday without fail. Even Christmas Eve.
Really?
2 days after a famous dad died, she was still there every Monday.
Wow, that's impressive. That's a lot of dedication.
Yeah. Well, we work with people who have had the rug pulled out from underneath them so many times.
Mm-hmm.
That consistency is really key.
Yeah.
They need to be able to know that we're there to count on. Plus, holidays are not always good for survivors.
Mm-hmm.
So Christmas Eve is the perfect time for us to pop up and say, hey, we're here. We
Yeah,
love you.
okay.
We're thinking about you.
Yeah. So
Oh.
that makes sense. So Bobbi, say your last name for me so I get this right. Is it
Parish.
just Parish?
Parish.
Okay.
Right. Parish is my maiden name.
Okay.
And that's what I use professionally.
Okay.
So yeah, Logie's the legal name.
Okay. Well,
But I don't use it.
I won't tell anybody. All right. So, all right, cool. So I'm going to make sure that we get all this right. So you have already gotten your brain around how the interview works, I'm sure. Y'all have talked about it. And I asked the 5 questions. You take it wherever you want to take it. And we try to keep it in that 35-minute range.
Okay.
We'll probably talk a little longer because of the 2 or 3 minutes we're spending here and towards the end. But I'll let you just do your thing. And I want to make sure people really understand what you do and how you've grown as a person.
Right.
And then towards the end, I'll make sure we're getting all the websites mentioned and, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. So just rock and roll and we'll dive in. You ready?
Great, Chris. I am ready.
Okay. Well, Bobbi Parish, this is a fun conversation because you've shared a lot of hope with a lot of people and you're in kind of a niche market. So you're a counselor, therapist. I'm sorry for lacking the professional know-how to make sure I say what you are the right way, but explain what you do professionally.
You bet. I am a trauma recovery coach. I'm trained as a therapist, and I have worked as a therapist, but I have moved from therapy over into the coaching modality because I like the modality of coaching so much better. And as a coach, I do one-to-one coaching. I do group coaching. I teach webinars. I teach classes. I write.
Wow.
Pretty much anything I think you would see a coach do, except within the niche of trauma recovery.
Okay. So I'm making notes here. I'm not texting, I promise.
No, that's okay.
So you also do a Monday webinar thing on Google Hangouts. You actually host a live conversation about this, right?
Yes, exactly. Actually, we have 3 events that we host every week without fail. On the original event we started was a Twitter chat on Tuesday evenings. And that went so well and it grew so large that we developed quite a following in the UK. But 6 o'clock on Tuesday evenings is 2 o'clock in the morning there. So they asked us to start another Twitter chat. So now we have a second one that's Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we have the 2 Twitter chats and they bookend right in the middle of the Google Hangout that's on Monday evening.
Okay.
And it's Monday evening, 6 p.m. If you go to our website, Trauma Recovery University, you can watch it, and you can also live tweet. So we do both. We interact on the Google Hangout. We take questions, we take comments, and we just interact with people as we go along and talk about the topic of the week. We have the same topic at all three of our events for the week.
That's impressive, not only because you're helping people and dealing with some people's heartaches that would be hard for some people to deal with, but also because you can do that and tweet at the same time. I'm one of those people who, if I'm responding to a tweet or a text, I'm like, everybody be quiet. Let me focus.
That's why it's incredible that there are two of us. My business partner, Athena Moberg, she and I do, it's the same way with the Twitter chat, because our Twitter chats are so fast flowing. Mm-hmm. And they're so lively. Sometimes Chris will get up to 700 or 800 tweets in an hour.
Whoa.
And that's multiple tweets a second. And so I kind of lead the conversation, and then Athena kind of follows around and makes sure that, everybody gets their needs met, everyone is greeted, no one's missed.
Yeah.
And so with the Google Hangouts, we kind of switch back and forth. And so while she's talking, I'm tweeting. And while I'm talking, she's tweeting.
Nice. All right. So where are you located?
I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Ah, nice. Getting warm down there right now.
It is. And right now it's very wet. I guess we have a tropical depression coming up from the Gulf. But yes, very warm. It's not my home, though. My home is the Pacific Northwest in Portland. So a few more years and I'll be able to move back after my little boy launches from the nest.
Okay.
So.
That's great.
Yes.
All right. Well, Bobbi, you know how this works. So what we're doing for new people joining and listening in, we're interviewing 1,000 people around the globe that are leading in hope. And that kind of means that every 8 million people or so on the planet get one representative in the survey. We're trying to be as fair as we can on spreading out, who's in the survey, so it really is as much of a global slice as we can get.
I love that.
It's really fun so far. And actually, we're being listened to in over 40 countries today as we're recording this. So even more in areas, it's just super cool that people are, number one, willing to give their time and share their story of hope like you are. And number two, that I'm not the only person out there who thought maybe I didn't have any hope. And I'm sure getting convinced otherwise.
Yeah, I hope so.
I really am. Okay, so let me ask you these 5 questions about hope, and you answer them however you want, and I'm here to learn.
Okay.
Question 1, what's your definition or your favorite quote about hope?
My definition of hope is a belief that good things are ahead of you. Particularly, within the genre that I work, I'm a survivor myself of childhood sexual abuse. I work with childhood survivors of abuse. I don't work as much I do anybody with trauma, but not as much with soldiers and things like that. So when you are raised in an atmosphere where you are physically, emotionally beat down day after day after day after day, and all these lies are planted in your head, like, I'm not good enough. I'm bad. That's why I'm being abused. I have no power. I'm never going to have any power. I'm going to be powerless the rest of my life. And I am to blame for all these things happening to me. And then you grow up as an adult and you take that out into the world. That's a really hard row to hoe. You don't have a lot of hope. How can you think you're worthless and sometimes even loathe yourself because you caused your abuse, even though you were, 4, 5, 10? And then you feel powerless because just for most of your youth, you were powerless. Whoever was abusing you was bigger, badder, had a whole lot more baggage to hold over your head. So you go forth into adulthood with this horrible feeling of things are never going to get better. And one of the most difficult tasks that I face is convincing a survivor that there's hope. And I think that's one of the reasons why people receive me well, because I've been there. I've been in those hellish places. I've been in and out of psychiatric wards. I've been homeless. I've gone through, 2 really nasty marriages and had them fail. I've been to those awful places, and I made it through. And I can sit with them and say, you know what? I get it. I understand it doesn't feel hopeful. I understand that you were told all these things when you were a child that have got you feeling like the worst person on earth who could never have a good thing, do a good thing, or be a good thing. But I'm here to tell you you can. And all you have to do, Chris, is just give that glimmer of hope. And then you leverage that sucker like crazy to get them to see more and more and more and more hope. Because the more hope they have, the more that they will then invest in making the future a better place.
That's powerful. It's powerful because it's your story, and it's powerful because it's true. There really is another page to the story coming your way. So, who has shared the most hope with you? That's question number 2. Who's given you the hope?
You know, I have strong memories in my head of when I was first started to deal with depression. And like I said, in and out of psychiatric wards. And the nurses and the psychologists telling me, no one is going to love you until you first love yourself. And I was always saying, but I don't know how to love myself. Nobody ever taught me how to love myself. What I was taught was how to hate myself. My father told me that I was a whore. I would never be anything other than a whore, and that would be the rest of my life. Well, when you're told those things, and then the people who are supposed to protect you don't rescue you from that tells you you're worthless. You aren't worth being rescued from a rapist. That's a pretty powerful message to send to a child. And of course, I didn't love myself. But I finally was lucky enough to stumble upon a therapist who understood that. And her name was Gabrielle, and she loved me unconditionally. For the first time in my life, someone loved me unconditionally. And she, through her loving me, through throwing me that example, she showed me how to love myself. And that's the first time in my life that I really learned how to love myself. And then I could have hope. Because then all of a sudden I realized, guess what? I'm not a horrible person. I can do some good things. I can have good things. I am a good thing. And so I think that's so critical. So many survivors don't have a clue in the world how to love themselves. They know how to hate themselves. They know how to self-destruct. They know how to cut. They know how to drink. They know how to do drugs. They know how to sell their bodies. They know how to beat themselves up with shame and guilt, but they don't know how to love themselves. And you sure can't have hope without that.
I'm really glad Gabrielle shared hope with you.
Me too.
Okay, so tell a story. So I know you've got a million stories, and probably almost all of them you probably don't want to tell and recount the whole thing. But tell us what life was like and where hope kind of fell through for you, and then how did it come back? I mean, give me the background here.
Things were pretty fun. I did pretty well through my childhood, survived all that, with a lot of it with some really powerful dissociation. Went to college, married the man that everybody said was going to be perfect, and it wasn't perfect. And that's when I got divorced, things really, really, really went downhill for me. I multiple stays in psychiatric wards where I was told I wanted to be sick, and that's why I wasn't getting any better. I was malingering. If I didn't get better, they'd send me to the state hospital. It was just horrible, horrible things. I lost a job. I was alone. And I reached a point where I decided that I've had enough. it's not going to get better. I'm not a good person. Everything I touch turns awful. And here are these people are experts in there telling me that I'm not even good at recovery. I'm not even good at healing myself. And so I tried to kill myself. And I panicked at the last second after I had consumed a lot of alcohol and pills and called 911. And it was in that moment, laying there in my hospital bed, thinking, if something's going to change, I'm going to have to change it. I'm going to have to look at something differently. I'm going to have to find someone else to help me. I think it took going right to the very edge of the drop off, Chris. And, one leg is out and the other toe is just about ready to slip down the canyon. And I got just that last push to give it another shot. And it was then, after I got out of the hospital, that I found Gabrielle and worked with her. And she found for me one of the few psychiatric inpatient wards in the country that deals exclusively with survivors of childhood abuse. And so I borrowed the money and I admitted myself for a 10-day program. And that was the first time, Chris, that anybody treated me like I was a part of my treatment team. They wanted to know what I thought. They understood why I wasn't getting any better. They knew I needed more support. And they treated me like I was worthwhile instead of just a burden. And we set up a treatment plan. I left there. I started seeing Gabrielle twice a week. And I started grad school to get my degree in marriage and family counseling. And that's when the hope came in. I think when I finally found people who treated me like I was worthwhile and taught me how to treat myself like I was worthwhile. And then I knew I was going to be starting a career where I was going to be able to make a difference. Because I knew somewhere in all that mud and muck of my childhood was something I could do so that other people's lives weren't that bad. I could do something with it. I will never, ever, ever be one to believe that happened to me so I could be a trauma recovery coach and reach out to other people. Heard that story, been there, done that. But I do believe that out of that awful stuff, I'm able to create something that's helpful to other people. So that was really my turning point, that suicide attempt, and the decision to, if I'm not gonna kill myself, I'm gonna change this, darn it.
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, that was a turning point for me. That was a big pivot point.
Wow. So let's just go ahead and toss this one out there. So let's say someone who's listening right now is considering suicide as a really legitimate and viable option for whatever reason back there. It may not be the same background story, but for whatever reason. What are you going to tell them next?
I'm going to tell them that I understand that the pain they're feeling is incredible. And that I really believe it's not about the fact that they actually want to die. They just don't want to feel that incredible emotional pain anymore. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to be rejected anymore. And I'm going to tell them that it can change. That I know people who have been there, I have been there, and we've been able to make a change. And what they need is something they haven't got yet, which is the right and the high quality help that they need. So don't give up. And I'm not going to be pithy or give you platitudes about how, it'll all be better tomorrow, because it might not. But there's hope. And if they're able to find the help that they need, get the help that they need, huge things can change.
Okay. So if I get the help that I need if I'm that person? And I've been there, so I don't mind putting the me label on there, besides just saying I have a friend who,
Yeah.
No, but seriously, so either we've been there as listeners, or we know someone who has, or we wonder if someone we know is struggling with that, and we need to get that help. How do we know where to start? I mean, wow, you're pretty messed up when you got that stuff going on in your head. So
Yes.
What in the world? Just Google suicide hotline, or do I call a friend, or literally, what do I do next?
And I think you do two things. Well, okay, I think you do three things. You contact a friend and you say, look, I'm feeling really badly. Could you just come sit with me? I'm really thinking that maybe I might try and do something to hurt myself. And I need somebody here with me. This person doesn't have to rescue you. They don't have to have the responsibility of anything other than just sitting there with you. And then I think you contact one of the suicide hotlines. There are multiple websites now where you can do crisis chat, even if you're more comfortable with that, and see what kind of help you can get in this very, 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 very moment. And then you work on setting an appointment up with a therapist or someone who can help you as soon as possible. Because I know that, you can't reach a therapist and have an appointment in half an hour.
Sure.
But you have to. So have someone with you, call someone, contact one of the crisis lines. Like we always recommend RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. And they're at 1-800-656-HOPE, HOPE.
1-800-656-HOPE.
Yes.
Okay.
And they also have a crisis line on their website.
Okay.
And then you call someplace and you get an appointment for as soon as possible.
And that's RAIN, like it's raining outside, like RAIN.
Exactly.
Okay.
Double N's.
Okay. RAINN.
There you go.
.org.
Mm-hmm. .org.
And so that's rape and incest, sexual abuse type hotline. But if I'm just struggling with suicide for some other reason, is that still a place to call, or should I be calling somebody else?
You can absolutely call there for any reason, and if they can't help you, they'll give you the number of someone who can.
Okay.
But there's also a national suicide hotline. I'm sorry, I don't know that number off the top of my head. And I know there are also resources in the UK that you can access that have both the chat feature and the telephone feature.
Okay. Last question on that. So when I've been there in the past, you can find the stuff online, but you have to wonder, but I have a real life and all this other stuff going on too. I'm not sure I want to let anybody know what's going on, because what if they track me down? What if the people from the funny farm or they come and try to take me off and lock me up for a month? I can't afford to lose the income. I have kids to watch after.
Right.
All those things. I mean, can you really do that privately, where if I jump online and have that chat or make that phone call, I'm not about to go away for a month?
Right. And I have two responses for that. The first is that unless you tell someone you are in imminent danger of harming yourself at that very moment, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to assess the lethality of your suicidal thoughts. They're going to want to know, do you have a method? Are you holding a gun in your hand? Do you have pills? Do you have razor blades? Do you have a method? Do you have a plan? And do you have a pretty serious intent? If you're calling to say, look, I feel like crap, and unless I can get some help, I think I might try and kill myself, that's not of the lethality that they would need to contact someone.
Okay. And
two, they're really not hospitalizing people very much anymore. There are not that many beds left, and it's awful. It's terrible, but I've gotten to the point, Chris, in my practice, when I have someone that is actively suicidal, I would rather sit on the phone and talk to them for 3 hours than send them to the emergency room, because I know the quality of care they're going to get there is not good. Our psychiatric wards, unless they're a specialized ward like a trauma unit, eating disorders, have become nothing more than warehouses while they monkey with your medication quickly enough to get you out the door. So no one is eager to hospitalize you unless you're standing there saying, I'm holding a gun in my hand and I'm either going to shoot myself or I'm going to shoot my loved one.
Sure. Okay.
So, as much as, there are some people that I wish when they call the hotline, they call the police and the police would come and get them some actual help. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Okay. So you can actually call privately and not worry about getting hauled off and.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No reason to be fearful of that phone call. Okay.
No.
Good.
And you know what? If that phone call doesn't get you the help that you need, you call the next place.
Great. Good point. It's worth too much to not keep pushing through.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that in that moment, it might feel like that's a whole heck of a lot of work to go through, because I know when you're that depressed, just sometimes just getting up off the sofa to, go upstairs and, chuck the cat outside or the dog outside feels like a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's so important that we get a friend. If you have to sit there while your friend makes phone calls to try and find a therapist who can see you on Monday, that's fine.
Yeah. That's right. And as a friend, if you're listening to this and you have a friend who is struggling with that, be that friend. It's worth it. Get in there and spend the hour or 2 or 5 and you really may be saving a life.
Exactly. And we're all worth it.
Yeah, we are. You're right. Ooh, good stuff. Question 4, and you're already answering this question, but how are you sharing hope with people today?
We do our Twitter chats. We do our Google Hangout. I write. I write on Good Men Project, on Psych Central. I have a blog. A couple other places I write. So I share not just pieces of my story, but pieces of other people's story and information, so that people are informed and encouraged. I think one of the things that, as Athena and I sat down together and put together what would we be doing for survivors, we looked at our own histories. Both of us are survivors. I was in recovery for probably a good 20 years. And so we looked at that and we went, why in the world did it take us so long? We're both intelligent people here, and for both of us, it had a lot to do with the fact that we didn't get a lot of education about A, what trauma is, and B, how it affects us. Trauma and abuse is some powerful stuff. It can create brain damage that looks exactly like a traumatic brain injury. If a trauma survivor, especially if you sustain serious trauma over a period of multiple years when you're young, if you give that person an MRI, it's going to look remarkably similar to someone who has a traumatic brain injury, say from a car accident, or some of the concussive injuries that are coming out of the war zones right now. Abuse damages the brain. Nobody ever told us that. We didn't know that. And furthermore, if we didn't know that, we certainly don't know how to compensate for it. So a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do is educate. Educate. And it's the most amazing, sometimes just education gives hope. Because when I say, you guys, you know what? Procrastination is an anxiety behavior. The reason you're procrastinating is because you have so little self-worth that you don't want to tackle the task, because you'd much rather be known as someone who doesn't get the job done on time than someone who does a lousy job. Really? You know what? You're right. Hey, I'm not a lousy person. I'm just afraid. Just that tiny little tweak in the way that they think and in what they know gives them hope, because they know why they're doing it. And it's not because they're bad. It's not because they have a weak character. They're afraid. And who wouldn't be afraid after, everything that you've gone through? And I have a couple of books that are coming out later this year. We have the anthology. Athena and I and Rachel Thompson publish an anthology every year of survivor stories. So lots of ways to reach out to people in as many different ways as we can. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we do Twitter. That's why we do Google. our Google Hangouts roll over to YouTube, and then they roll over to Roku TV. So we have a Roku TV channel too. Every way that we can think of to reach survivors, we're trying it.
That's good stuff. It's a busy world. So as a regular person like me and like all the great people listening right now, how can we share hope? So, it's tempting to get bogged down in the tough story and my story's hard and everybody's story's hard, and we can stay in this zone of just dwelling on the negativity. But how do we just start taking action to grow in hope or share hope ourselves right now? The simple ABCs, the steps forward. What do I do?
Reach out to someone who's struggling.
Huh.
As Athena and I have put together a model on how people respond to trauma and how they recover. The highest stage is advocacy for others. You will grow in hope as you share hope with other people. You will grow in hope as you help someone else and they come back to you and say, it worked. You helped me. There are very few things in this world that are more wonderful to hear than someone looking you in the eyes and saying, you helped me. I have hope because you did this. And it gets us out of our navel gazing, out of that, always looking at myself and my problems.
Yeah.
Help somebody else. Maybe one day it's as simple as, paying for the coffee of the guy in the car behind you. Maybe one day it's as simple as, somebody sitting there looking down and saying, hey, what's going on? How you doing? It doesn't have to be a grand, huge gesture. But reach out and help others. I guarantee it will be difficult not to see hope.
It's really true. Boy, that's true. There's a lot to these interviews that I get to hear because they're cut at the beginning and the end. So, Bobbi, when you and I first answer the phone, hello, all that stuff, it's not part of the interview. And then there's stuff at the end, but it's so common for me to get a comment after I'm talking to someone like you who's a professional hope sharer, and the comment in as we're talking or in the Skype chat afterwards, just, wow, that was so great. I feel so good. I really enjoyed that. Just, it's so great to get to share my story and share some hope again. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding. You're one of the best and brightest in your field, and you feel great about that. But when you share something, you get way more back in return than what you actually give out.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Good advice.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, if you're listening, simply share this. That's not a self-promotion of the show, because I'm sure not my story. This is Bobbi's story. But share Bobbi's story. Share her website, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. So, Bobbi, you've got Facebook, Twitter, and Roku TV and YouTube. Lay them out there. How do we track you down?
You can find me at my website, bobbiparish.com. You can reach me at Gmail at bobbilparish@gmail.com, because somebody already had my name. And then we also have, Athena and I have together, traumarecoveryuniversity.com. And that's where all of the things that we do together funnel through. And then I'm on Twitter at Truth is Hers. I'm on Facebook at Bobbi Parish Coaching and Consulting. We have the Roku TV channel. Just do the search Trauma Recovery University. And we have all of those same videos. So if you don't have Roku TV, you can watch them all on YouTube, Trauma Recovery University. So if you want to binge watch, we've got 50 hours up there full of content.
That's hilarious. That's great. So good information. So unless somebody literally handed this audio episode to you on an 8-track, you probably have access to the internet, and it'd be hard not to find you. I think that's what you just said, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And reach out to me any of those ways. I have secret Facebook groups where you can join for support. I'd be glad to help you get plugged into our Twitter community. We have 15,000 people on Twitter.
Wow.
That interact with us, and it is nothing short of magic twice a week on Mondays and Tuesdays when we all come together and we've had people before, this just last week, we participated in a suicide prevention Twitter chat. And people are like, but aren't some of these people suicidal? Don't they talk amongst each other and promote suicide? But abuse survivors are so unstable. No, they love each other. They encourage, they support, they talk about horrible, horrible things that have happened to us, and other people say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm glad you're here today. It's magic. I tell people it's magic, but truly it's magic to watch them come together and provide for one another hope.
That is so true. People who've been through something hard, if that's a support group for people who've been through a fire or through a war zone or a car injury or losing a limb or depression or suicide or drug addiction, whatever it is, when you get to, number one, talk about, here's what happened, it takes some of the pressure off.
It does.
And then when you get to hear somebody else's story, you realize, I'm not the only one. And, 9 times out of 10, oh, Mal, they have it worse off than I do, and it's just good to have some commonality there in a weird sort of way.
It is, because, for some of us, shame is the prevalent feeling that we feel over our childhood abuse, and shame is isolating. And so for some of these people, they have carried this burden for decades to themselves. They haven't talked with anybody about it. Yeah. And they come into these chats and, like we had a woman one time who was talking about how seeing herself in the mirror, walking down the stairs, she sees herself in the mirror and she's not a child anymore. She's an adult and she looks a lot like her abuser. And she said, it scares the crud out of me every time. I just, it's that subconscious look-see. And somebody else popped up and said, wait, do you do that? I do that too. I thought I was the only person in the world who felt that way. And those are the parts that I just love seeing people say, wait. You mean I'm not alone? You mean I'm not this crazy, weird freak that, thinks and feels these ways? And everybody else going, oh, no, you are not. We had an episode where we talked about money and the shame in handling money because it's, chances are we didn't get any lessons when we were a child about finances or, how to balance a checkbook or how to save. We were just trying to survive. So we grow up, we sometimes don't have good money handling skills, and people were talking about getting the mail. And this woman said, you know what? I come home, I grab the mail, and I throw it in a corner of my apartment. And I don't look at it for years. I said, you know what I do? I said, I get my mail, I open the trunk of my car, and I throw it in the trunk of my car. and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not some strange weirdo. Yeah. And there's this tiny little simple thing not only gives you that connection to that person, but it's like, hey, okay, it's not functional, it's not a good thing to do, but I'm still not alone.
Ooh, wow. Okay. Reach out to Bobbi if you have some serious stuff you're working on, because even if you don't sit down with her in a coaching or counseling setting, just to get in the conversation with her and the group she's part of, that she's built this big community of people who are honest and authentic and willing to be real together. Boy, that's just worth so much. And there's so many resources there. Awesome.
We're ready.
Yeah, we are. I know. And you're making it ready. Thank you very much. Okay, so Bobbi, let's take a quick break. And I'm going to make a note here that we're like 38 minutes and a half, 38:30. So I need a few I Share Hope quotes from you for the beginning of this episode. Okay. By the way, wow, there's so much good content there.
Thank you.
We'll come back to some more good content in just a second. But so give me your name and I share hope. That's kind of the quote. Like, I am Bobbi Parish and I share hope. Or I'm Bobbi Parish, a counselor or a coach or a whatever you want to say, and I share hope. I'm going to push mute on my side and just let you record some good audio there.
Okay. I'm Bobbi Parish. I'm a trauma recovery coach, and I share hope by telling my story and letting others know that there is a way out of a horrible situation into a life that you love.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay.
That's awesome. I'll leave it at that. I think you just nailed it.
Okay.
Okay, so you're literally on TV. We're going to call it what it is. So
Yep.
you're on TV once a week. And I mean, I'm saying TV meaning Google Hangouts and real TV.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got lots of TV stuff you've done too, in like the Real Stuff interview. But you're on Google Hangouts once a week, and you're talking about some really awkward, embarrassing, crazy stuff. At what point do you personally start blushing and saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm fixing to say this"?
Well, my training is as a marriage and family counselor.
Yeah.
So I'm trained to talk about things all the way down to couple sex lives.
Okay.
We've talked about healthy sexuality on some of our Google Hangouts, because you can darn well bet that if you were raised with sexual abuse, having an intimate sexual relationship with your partner can be a sticky wicket.
Yeah.
And so, we talk about it. I don't know. I've had people ask me before, how do you talk about those things? And I think the best thing I can say is, one, I'm not ashamed anymore.
Huh.
I spent my life, a good 35 years of my life, living in shame.
Mm-hmm.
I am not ashamed anymore. And two is that I know that my capacity to help others is directly linked to my capacity to be vulnerable and authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Directly linked.
My capacity to help others is directly linked to my capacity to be vulnerable and authentic.
Exactly.
That's a good quote.
Yes, because that's what my people need. My people, Noah leading people anywhere on my heart.
Sure.
That's what my community needs.
Yeah.
They need someone to stand up and say, like I wrote a post for Psych Central talking about when sex becomes currency. For many of us who were sexually abused, sex was how our abuser showed us that they loved us. That was what in our heads. And some of us were even told that.
Yep.
I was told, this is the way that daddies show their daughters that they love them. You're special, and that's why I'm doing this. I don't do this with, name my other sibling, because I love you. So I grew up thinking, oh, okay, sex and love click together, right?
Yeah.
14 years old, walking home from my job, a fellow who I knew from school picked me up, drove down a dark street, and wanted to have sex with me. I did. Because in my mind, that was how I got him to approve of me. That's how you bought approval and affection, was with sex. And I can't tell you how many survivors out there are like, I don't understand, why was I so promiscuous when I was a teenager? Why was I so promiscuous in my 20s? Because you were brought up to believe that sex was the way that you bought affection and approval. And so, yeah, of course you're going to go out there and have sex with people with the goal of, okay, I've had sex with you, now you love me, right? Right? Oh, you approve of me now, right? Right? No. But what else did we know? Eventually we learned. But when sex is contorted and perverted like that when you're a child, and so, I learned to talk about these things because that's what survivors are carrying, Chris, in their heart. They're carrying the shame of the fact that I was promiscuous when I was a teenager and in my 20s. You know what? And in their head, they're thinking, that proves that my bruiser was right. I'm bad. I'm never going to be good. I can't do good things. And when I can say to them, you know what, that's not true. This is why you were using sex. This is why you were promiscuous. And then that doesn't feel like proof of their badness anymore. Was it a good thing to do? No. Should they have done something different? Yes. But given what they were raised under those conditions, it makes sense. And there's no reason for them to feel ashamed about it.
Huh. Wow.
So you got to talk about those things, or these people are walking around with these burdens.
Yeah.
Just carrying these boulders of pain.
Yeah.
And if I can tell one person, you can put that down now. That doesn't belong to you. It's worth it.
That is worth it. Oh, wow, that's good stuff. You're just full of great, great points. I wish we could go on for hours. All right, so question, not question nothing. A question about music. I'm shifting gears here. And Jeff is our audio guy, so Jeff, when you hear this, cut this part out. I'm going to make a quick note here. I really want to capture what you just said and move it to a previous spot in the interview that it really fit well in. Okay. So let's say to 45 or so. Okay. And then, so if you're listening to music that needs to just pump you up and you got to get off the couch and get rocking and rolling again, what is the band and the track? Favorite song, favorite band or artist?
You know what? I preface this by saying I'm not a huge music person. For some reason, music has never done that for me. But given that, wow.
How do you entertain yourself to just laugh? So if it's not music, is it Netflix? Where are you going?
Yeah, Netflix. I'll watch things on YouTube. I'll read.
Yeah.
Big reader. I don't know why music has never done it for me, but music has just never been one of those, get up and motivate me. I don't know why.
I've been that way most of my life, but recently it's come back around for me. So favorite book. Give me a favorite book.
Oh my goodness.
Nothing counseling. Okay, get out of the depths here. Nothing. I don't want to cry.
I was going to talk about Brené Brown.
Great author, but I don't want to cry.
You know what? I love murder mysteries.
Oh, yeah.
I love murder mysteries because it takes me to a completely different place.
Yeah.
And the thriller murder mystery component of it, like in the movie Sahara, which was written by one of my favorite adventure novelists, Clive Cussler.
Yeah.
So, things like that are just like so far away from what I sit in, 24/7. That's what takes me away. That's what refreshes my mind. You know what I mean? Pushes the reset button. How's that?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. And on that note, so love the BBC Sherlock series.
Yes.
And I just funny, quippy, but great murder mystery stuff.
Yes.
Cumberbatch is a killer actor. I mean, there's just so much there. I wish they'd produce those shows faster. I really do. But he's getting too famous now. He doesn't have time for Sherlock.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Hey, Bobbi, you've just given us so much to chew on here and work with, and I am impressed. And I'm very thankful for your time. I know you've got a lot on your plate, and you're helping a lot of people. Thank you for reaching out and helping me and a few other people who are listening along.
I'm honored to be here.
Oh, it's great.
I'm honored to do the work I do.
It's an honor to have you here. Thanks.
Okay.
Enjoy your evening.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've just listened to I Share Hope. If you're ready to make a change, head to our website at isharehope.com and claim your free copy of the Top 10 Actions of Hope from World Leaders to use hope in your own life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
way, but explain what you do professionally.
You bet. I am a trauma recovery coach. I'm trained as a therapist, and I have worked as a therapist, but I have moved from therapy over into the coaching modality because I like the modality of coaching so much better. And as a coach, I do one-to-one coaching, I do group coaching, I teach webinars, I teach classes, I write.
Wow.
Pretty much anything I think you would see a coach do, except within the niche of trauma recovery.
Okay. So I'm making notes here. I'm not texting, I promise.
No, that's okay.
So you also do a Monday webinar thing on Google Hangouts. You actually host a live conversation about this, right?
Yes, exactly. Actually, we have 3 events that we host every week without fail. On the original event we started was a Twitter chat on Tuesday evenings. And that went so well and it grew so large that we developed quite a following in the UK. But 6 o'clock on Tuesday evenings is 2 o'clock in the morning there. So they asked us to start another Twitter chat. So now we have a second one that's Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we have the 2 Twitter chats, and they bookend right in the middle of the Google Hangout that's on Monday evening.
Okay.
And it's Monday evening, 6 p.m. If you go to our website, Trauma Recovery University, you can watch it, and you can also live tweet. So we do both. We interact on the Google Hangout. We take questions, we take comments, and we just interact with people as we go along and talk about the topic of the week. We have the same topic in all 3 of our events for the week.
That's impressive, not only because you're helping people and dealing with some people's heartaches that would be hard for some people to deal with, but also because you can do that and tweet at the same time.
Hope is a belief that good things are ahead of you. I've been to those awful places. One of the most difficult tasks that I face is convincing a survivor that there's hope by telling my story and letting others know that there is a way out of a horrible situation into a life that you love. I'm Bobbi Parish. I'm a trauma recovery coach, and I share hope.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
Hey, Chris.
What is up, Bobbi? I am excited to talk to you. I've heard so many good things about you.
Well, thank you, sir.
What are you doing over there?
I was scheduling Google Hangouts.
Oh, that's important.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you do a lot of Google Hangouts. It sounds like you guys both do a ton of this stuff, right?
We do one every Monday. Every
Wow.
Monday without fail. Even Christmas Eve.
Really?
2 days after Athena's dad died, she was still there every Monday.
Wow, that's impressive. That's a lot of dedication.
Yeah. Well, we work with people who have had the rug pulled out from underneath them so many times.
Mm-hmm.
That consistency is really key.
Yeah.
They need to be able to know that we're there to count on. Plus, holidays are not always good for survivors.
Mm-hmm.
So Christmas Eve is the perfect time for us to pop up and say, hey, we're here. We love you. We're thinking about you.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So Bobbi, say your last name for me so I get this right. Is it
Parish?
Just Parish.
Parish.
Okay.
Right. Parish is my maiden name.
Okay.
And that's what I use professionally.
Okay.
So yeah, Logie's the legal name.
Okay. Well,
but I don't use it.
I won't tell anybody. All right. Okay. So, all right, cool. So I'm going to make sure that we get all this right. So you have already gotten your brain around how the interview works, I'm sure. Y'all have talked about it. And I asked the 5 questions. You take it wherever you want to take it. And we try to keep it in that 35-minute range.
Okay.
We'll probably talk a little longer because of the 2 or 3 minutes we're spending here and towards the end. But I'll let you just do your thing. And I want to make sure people really understand what you do and how you've grown as a person. Right. And then towards the end, I'll make sure we're getting all the websites mentioned and, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. So just rock and roll, and we'll dive in. You ready?
Great, Chris. I am ready.
Okay. Well, Bobbi Parish, this is a fun conversation because you've shared a lot of hope with a lot of people, and you're in the kind of a niche market. So you're a counselor, therapist. I'm sorry for lacking the professional know-how to make sure I say what you are the right way.